and Development Committee to order at 6:15 or 6:16 now. Missed my prompt start. I'm going to do attendance. Councilmember Nguyen. Here. Councilmember Nusma. Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Ravel.
Here.
Councilmember Hedekadis.
Here.
Myself. And is Councilmember Kelly on this committee? And Councilmember Kelly. She may not be online. Okay. Moving forward, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 14th meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Burns, seconded by Councilmember Nguyen. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, or I'm sorry, all those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. That moves us to public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment?
We do have one person.
We have one person signed up online, Dina Cooper. The trouble with starting on time is sometimes people aren't used to us starting on time. All right, so we'll circle back to public comment later if necessary.
Just a note.
Oh, and Councilmember Kelly will add you to the roll.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that moves us, we've no one for public comment. That moves us to items for consideration. May I have a motion on item P1? Ordinance 125-022, major zoning relief to eliminate an existing condition for termination of use upon change of ownership at 3101 Central Street,
So
Lakeside
moved.
Auto Repair. Moved by Councilmember Burns,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Ravel. I believe this is in your ward. All right. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion, I think folks are aware of what this item is. Yeah, okay, we're good on that. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item P1 passes. That brings us to item P2, ordinance 126-022, approving major variations pursuant to City Code Section 6-3-8-10D for the property located at 1453 Maple Avenue.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Nguyen, seconded by Councilmember Ravel. Is there any discussion on this item? Councilmember Ravel.
Well, I was interested in the discussion about parking, and I know we have had a number of projects recently where we've gone back and reduced the required amount of parking so they can, to free up spaces then for public use. And I was just kind of wondering what happened in those cases. Are those used by the general public on an hourly basis? Are they used, or do people lease them? How are those spaces used? And I suppose it varies depending on the building, but yeah.
All right, great question. For the record, Liz Williams, Planning Manager with the City of Evanston. So it varies, really. I think a lot of what I'm aware of is that they will lease them to individuals who would like a spot within that area or within proximity because they work or live, and they also may just be open to the general public as well.
Wondering if it's giving us any hint about how we might amend our parking requirements if we knew what was really happening with those freed up spaces.
Yeah, and staff did do a little bit of analysis in the memo, and we are, strongly considering the need to look at parking regulations within the city of Evanston, just because we are seeing a significant enough number of requests for reductions or relief from our parking standard, or they may be within certain proximity to available transit, so their market feasibility studies are showing that there isn't the demand So in this case, the department is supportive of the request for 10 spaces where, in this case, the Land Use Commission actually recommended additional spaces be leased off-site than what is proposed by the department.
And could you just say a couple words about why the Land Use Commission wanted to require the 15 instead of just 10? Or is-
There wasn't a ton of discussion by the Land Use Commission related to that. I think there was a couple of folks from the neighborhood that did say that they were concerned with the demand of parking that may be generated from this particular facility. But as mentioned in the staff memo to the commissioners tonight, there has been, it is consistent with other relief that's been granted.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
And I'd just like to say, I think it's a really exciting adaptive reuse, and so really pleased to see a project going into that building.
Thank you. Yes. Seeing no further discussion, I do have one question. Whoever can, either Liz or Sarah can answer this maybe, but from my recollection, when the Land Use Commission recommends something to council, usually we have to either accept or reject, and if we reject and want to change, we usually make that motion. Am I mistaken on past practice?
So I can't speak to past practice, but what I can say is the ordinance that's before you is the department's recommendation, not what the Land Use Commission did recommend. So if you are in agreement with what the applicant originally requested, in this case, they requested 10 parking stalls, where the Land Use Commission recommended 15. So that is what is before you this evening, is to approve 10 parking stalls.
Yeah, and I'm fully in support of that. I'm certainly someone who thinks that we need to move away from maybe even parking minimums in many cases. But just thinking that a committee took a vote on something, they passed that vote forward to council, and then that item doesn't appear before us. Just out of, I think, respect for the legislative process and for the work of the committee, my recollection is typically we have that before us. We have to deal with that and however we want to deal with it and then move forward. Is that, Councilmember, or I don't know if you have any?
I honestly have not been in a situation where I've had to deal with that. I know there have been cases where there's been recommendations that have not included exactly what came from the Plan Commission at the time. But I honestly don't remember the procedure.
Okay.
And I'll also just add that in the ordinance, we do recognize what the Land Use Commission did recommend as part of the whereas clauses. And then it is described in there that, the department does recommend a different recommendation for the city council's consideration.
Oh, okay. Attorney Ruggie, do you have anything to add?
Alexandra Ruggie, Assistant City Attorney. I believe, I'm not sure how it worked previously, but I think because it's just the land use is a recommending body, so it'd be similar to if a recommendation moved forward from any other committee. But in this instance, the ordinance that's brought has been amended. If Corporation Counsel wants to jump in.
Good evening, members of the Planning Development Committee, Chair Reed, Nicholas Cummings, Corporation Counsel. If you could repeat the question for me, I was in the middle of a discussion with the police chief.
Yeah, well, the question was really just about how items, so the Land Use Commission voted one way for this regarding the major variation. It's that vote or that determination is not appearing on this agenda. What is appearing is staff's recommendation, which just again, for the record, I agree with and I support. But I'm just thinking about the process that if Land Use Commission voted on an item, said this is what we support, and then it moves forward to council, is it proper to not even have that appear before us?
So my understanding is that the committee Planning Development Committee should be fully apprised of both positions. So I'm not exactly sure what is different, whether it be the memo or the ordinance that's before you, but
The ordinance, I guess, because it reduces the requirement for parking.
so if the ordinance is different, then at least in the memo or in the recitals of the ordinance, that information should be contained in the recitals of what the Land Use Commission voted on and found. In fact, all of the ordinance that come out of the Land Use Commission should have those recitals in it, because that is the basis for why we have the ordinance coming forward. It's like the facts that are necessary for it.
And it does in both the memo and in the ordinance.
Yeah. So while I certainly understand the language drafted in the ordinance may be different, it's based on staff's recommendation, as long as the committee is fully apprised of the process, meaning you have the information before you that the Land Use Commission considered and their recommendation as well as staff's recommendation, it should be proper.
Okay, thank you. With that, and we'll add Councilmember Nusma to the rolls. We are voting on ordinance P2, which I believe is in your ward. Yes, 1453 Maple. I wasted enough time with the questions about procedure then. Now you're here. Okay, do you have anything on that? Good to go. Okay, with that, all those in favor of item P2?
Aye. Any, why am I forgetting the word for opposition? Any nays? And any abstentions? Okay. That brings us to item P3, ordinance 128-022, granting a special use permit for a convenience store at 321 Howard Street in the B3 Business District.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Burns, seconded by Councilmember Hedikadis. Is there any discussion on this item? No. This is in the 8th Ward. Interesting to see a convenience store in this location, so excited for it. With that, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it, and this is a record night.
Thank you.
All right, with that, with no further business before us, the Planning and Development meeting for December 12th is hereby adjourned.